beautiful souls. I hope you're well. Today, I'm so happy to have with me a beautiful lady. Susie is here with us today, and Susie has a really interesting things to talk about. She has been a licensed cosmetologist for more than 30 years, a practice where she had the opportunity to be in contact with a lot of people and bring in her own way, her own special energy to people in a very, I wouldn't say covert, but in a very discreet and subtle way. And she has also trained for acupressure. And she is also she does angelic healings as well. There's so many things you do, Susie. You're fascinating, and you are also a creator here and there when time permits. So, without further ado, I'm just going to welcome you and give us the opportunity to know more about your practice and everything you do, and your beautiful spiritual journey and healing journey. So, hello, Susie. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So tell us a little bit more before we go into more into your healing practice and everything. Tell us a little bit more about that creative aspect of yours.
Well, that just kind of happened by accident. I make crafts, and I do different types. I'll take reclaim wood signs. I try and use items um, just from a recycle standpoint. It saves things from going into landfills. So I'll make signs. I'll um, make all little I've done things with mason jars, tissue holders, things like that. But I also do, I've just gotten into making like garden flags. I make, put sayings on aprons, tea towels. They're a lot of fun because that's where I can get into the whole artistic of graphic design and
Mm.
just making the garden flags are so much fun. They really are. And they're actually my biggest seller when
Cool.
I go to the craft shows. Yeah.
Would you care to show us your beautiful mug or thing
Oh,
you showed
yes.
me? Because
I
this is
had
something.
made this,
Wow.
and it says, for those of
Nat
us who know, Nataru.
Nataru. Yeah, the galaxy,
So it's just, yeah, this is just something I just kind of threw together. And
really beautiful. Really beautiful. So you'll tell us more about how we can eventually um access some of the material you create. But so creation is a way for, it's fun for you, but it's also a way to recycle things and help the environment in that way. And just and you do also like arts and craft shows and things like that sometimes. And
yes, I do. I do local craft shows, not really so much online. Online trying to keep up with the different selling platforms. It's a
yeah.
lot of work. So, and I'm the type of person, I love people. I like to see people face to
Yeah.
face, so I like that much more than being behind a computer screen and selling
Craft
money.
shows in person, I mean, and I've done a
It's
few
so much
myself. They're
fun.
really fun. Like, you really
Yeah,
get people's energy and you bring them also. It's not just about
yeah,
the art, it's also about the
yeah,
contact and everything. So that's
yeah,
always a beautiful experience. So I can
yeah,
understand how you're
yeah, yeah.
connecting there with people with your beautiful energy. So, which kind of dovetails into bringing your beautiful energy out there. What are the beautiful modalities that you have used and now are new modalities you're offering or have trained for regarding acupressure? And also, would you like to tell us a bit more about all this energy healing?
Yeah, I started out many years ago. I've always been able to connect with the angels. When I was 5 years old, I used to see the orbs. I knew they were angels, and I had said to myself, you know, God, creator, source, sent me here for a reason. So
Yeah.
I'm like, what does a 5 year old know, from that?
Mhm.
So like, I always would look up. I always felt close to the angels. I always felt close in a connection to source.
Yeah.
But now, as my path is further along, knowing about all the galactic things, you know, why I was really looking up. So, that there's more to the story. So, So yeah, I've always had a connection to the angels. Several years ago, I really got into working with the angels, learning about them, getting certified in, angelic healing. Um, and then I started, my path. And as we go along in our journeys, as we all know, we kind of take twists and turns, and we get guided in different ways. And last August, I had a dream, and I was standing at the head of an exam table, and I was working on a blue-skinned extraterrestrial. And I
Hmm.
was hitting these 2 points here, which are stomach meridian points. And there was a male voice behind me on my left, and he said one word, acupressure. And I woke up, and I know to trust my intuition and my guides enough. When that happens, I'm being told something. So I woke up and I said, okay. So I started to look into online courses, books, researching what's the, legalities in my state. I live in New Jersey. How do I go about this? So, and it was like, it was like stop and go sort of a thing. I would, I got a few online courses, and then there would be nothing. And then again, it was, then other things happened, and then every um, spring and fall we have like adult classes at our local vocational technical school. So
Mhm.
I got the book and I looked and I saw there were some acupressure classes with this woman. So I said, you know what, they were for self care, and I said, okay, this is where I'll start. Let me start here, and I'll speak to this woman and see if she can guide me on where I can get properly trained for this. So um, I go into the first night, and this particular one was about it was back release for back pain, and I walked into the building, and there was this woman. She walks into the office in front of me, and they tell her room, and she goes off, and I walked up behind her and I said, where do I go for the acupressure class? And the gentleman says to me, follow that lady right there, she's your teacher. And I just knew.
Synchronicity.
So, so I walked up to her and I said, oh, I'll follow you. So we started chatting, and I looked at her, and she asked me what brought you, to the class. And I didn't go into the whole extraterrestrial thing. I said, all right, I'm not going to go that far. Let me just tell her I had a dream. So, and as I was speaking with her, I felt her energy, and I said to myself, she's going to be my mentor.
Wow.
And I just knew, and we just clicked.
Hmm.
And I took the 3 classes there, and she had me, told me that there's a SEVA certification class. Now, what SEVA is the acupressure modality for trauma that was used on the first responders in 9/11. So that is something I'm going to be bringing to Jizik. And there's a few people I want to do it on. It can be done seated. And you just hit, several pressure points. And it's very calming and soothing. It balances, it opens up the body. Because when we're super stressed, even if you don't realize you're stressed, our lives are just stressful in general.
Yep.
We have a tendency to just kind of like, hunker down and
Tense
kind
up.
of, yeah.
Hmm.
So, so I got certified for that. And when I was there, she said, I have several certification classes, and the first one was starting in 2 weeks. So it was like the second I took that SEVA class, it's like everything just went boom, 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 boom. Like
Hmm.
all these just came up. So I mean, since June, it's been, the SEVA the certification process acupressure. I took the clinical, which she trained me privately because there were 2 teacher certification classes. The second one I'm taking tomorrow. And the company, it's called Soul Lightning, they were offering a grant for people to learn. So the teachers were choosing certain certain students. She chose me because when I was working on the process certification, um, she said to me, "You've done this work before." And I said, "Yes, I have, because even though I went in very left brained, I'm going to learn this, this, and this. This is how I'm going to do this." But I never expected to experience the healing that comes with this. And this breaks through barriers that you can't get through with traditional psychotherapy.
Because the body
So,
doesn't lie, right?
no, the body doesn't lie. And um, you don't realize how something you went through as a child that you may say, "Oh, well, now that was no big deal." But your body doesn't know that. So it gets stuck in there. The inner child in the body doesn't know that it's safe now. So this particular modality was set up by this woman, Amina Rahim. She's a transpersonal psychologist that wasn't finding, she wasn't getting the results with her clients that she felt that she needed. So she studied all these different, modalities, and she put this together. And she took specific points, acupuncture points, and put them in with acupressure, because acupuncture is wonderful. It really is. But the acupressure, you're holding 2 points together, and you're balancing the energy. And as an energy worker, when you're sensitive to energies, you can feel it. You feel it in the body. Now, that being said, with this, you're not transferring energy into another person. You're not taking their energy. You don't want to absorb their energy either. So you hold what's called interface. So that's where, basically where your energy ends and mine begins, and we meet there. And that's where we hold, because it's not good for either the client or the practitioner to exchange that energy. And that's something I never realized in all the years of being a cosmetologist. I did mostly nails. So I was constantly healing people, not realizing it, and wondering, why am I so I'm exhausted, I'm depressed, because I
Drained.
was drained from pulling all these energies, because I was touching people all day long.
Wow.
So in our hands, there's meridians that they end here in the fingertips.
There's a transference there that's very powerful.
I'm working on all day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really amazing work.
Mm-hmm.
So then, and then the clinical, certification is exactly what it is: clinical. Back issues, neck issues, ankle issues, stomach issues. And that's where I learned all the different, protocols for that. And something they tell you in this, they said, don't memorize these things, because they want you focused in on what you're doing and on the body. So, and when she was saying that to me, I was saying to her, I have all these things in my head. Can I do this? Can I do that? Well, I said, but the second I start touching people, something clicks in my brain and I just know what to do. She goes, yeah, you've done this before. She says, I know it. And I said, yeah, I kind of do.
And natural at it. And
yes. Yeah. I guess up in the astrals or, in a different lifetime, I've done this.
Wow, it's fascinating.
So it really, really is fascinating. I've never been so excited about anything in my life. And that's why I want to get the word out. It's not, healing is so important for the self, where we're going as a race, as a species. Mm-hmm. We're not allowed to process. We were never really shown how to process, where everything is, be strong, put it behind you, think positive, all these things, but it doesn't get to the root of the problem. And what in myself, when I went through that first certification, I realized I never grieved. We always have to say, how are you doing? Oh, I'm okay. Well, I realized I'm not okay. I haven't been okay in a very long time. And you know what? That's okay. It's not okay to stay there. You can admit that you're not okay, but figure out what your steps are to get to healing. And that's going to vary for each person.
Yeah.
Maybe you might start off with psychotherapy. Maybe you've been there, that doesn't help. Maybe you want to try a different modality, whether that's meditation, acupressure, acupuncture, yoga, retreats, whatever is helpful to you. And that will change. You go through, and that's happened to me. I mean, I went through meditations, one particular meditation, and I was with that for I don't know how long, and I just couldn't. I had a wall that I couldn't get through, and the process, all the professionals will go through that wall, and that's when I realized that what it was grief. I never grieved, my childhood trauma. I never grieved the loss of my pregnancies and the fact that I could never have a child. So I spent the second night of that course just sobbing because I needed to.
Yeah.
And so it was really it was a relief. And I think with most people, the grief turns into anger, resentment. So you're angry, but you don't really realize why you're angry. Look at perhaps it's grief. Maybe it's not, but I would say more often than not that it's grief for something that happened.
Yeah.
As children, we're supposed to be able to trust the people who are taking care of us, and there's a lot of cases where you can't, because those people that are supposed to protect you are the ones hurting you.
Yeah.
So, and that's really tough when you really look at that in the face.
Yeah.
And once you can, and you can make peace with that, doesn't mean that, forgiveness, they say, oh, well, I don't want to forgive because then it makes it okay. No, it doesn't make it okay. But the forgiveness is a point where you say, what you did was wrong. I don't accept what you did, but I forgive it because I need to move on for myself. And when you can get to that point, you're literally stepping over the issue, and then you can move forward. And it's a lifelong journey. I mean, I've done healing work for about 15 years, and I'm still in the process of doing things. What I started doing for myself was taking a journal, and after that first class, something just told me, my guides told me, write everything down that happened one by one. And it's not, a pointing the finger, you did this and they were wrong. And it's more of from an observer point, this is what happened, this is how it made me feel. This is what happened, this is how it made me feel. And I just went down the line, and I'm still in the process of doing that. And I can't tell you how therapeutic that was, because it gave it a voice. And now it's out, and I can put it to the side and move on to the next thing. So if that can help somebody, maybe that's something somebody might want to consider. And I've spoken to different people, and I've heard people say, well, I can't because then I'll just start crying and I won't stop. Well, then cry, because that's how we heal. Give it a voice, cry, get it out. Don't keep stifling, because it doesn't go away. It's not going to, time doesn't, heal all wounds.
Yeah, you have to play you have to play your part in that. What I find interesting in what you say, and what I've noticed from different people I've had in interviews who are also have been on the spiritual and healing journey, but then also have developed some kind of modality of any kind, is that I always find it beautiful and incredible how from the pain, from where the hurt was, emerges naturally the modality. I don't know how to explain it, but the modality itself will speak about for example, if you need to heal through the body, then suddenly this modality will come around. And in your case, acupressure is very, or body oriented. And then yes, you will offer to others, but through that, you're healing yourself. So it's a little bit like the teacher who also is the student. I find this interesting, this element of we teach best what we have to learn in some ways.
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, okay, I've trained in this and I'm like this and that and I have a label and it's like I'm always learning and I am myself, kind of struggling with that journey. And while I'm doing that, I'm also, I don't know, bringing that to the world and help others because I have the compassion to understand what they're going through because I've been through myself. So again, a beautiful example of what you're bringing through your modality is that it came from your own healing, and I find that very inspiring because you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's you know, there's that saying, good can come out of, any situation. If, how can you help somebody if you've never experienced that yourself? I mean, how can you help maybe a woman that's going through a divorce if you haven't, experienced heartache? So when you have that experience, and you want to go into, if you're a natural healer and you want to go into helping people, use what you've been through, because that is comforting to another person. And this just brought up something in my head. My teacher, my mentor, I connect with her on so many different levels because things that she's gone through and that she's healed, I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
What broke down that wall for me was in the beginning of the class, she kind of made it funny and had a little halo thing on her head. And she went through this whole skit about how she came into the world, and, a beautiful little innocent soul. And she was born in, and, her father was a yeller and it made her frightened. And so you put on one layer and then, all these different layers of perfectionism and, fear and trying to do it. So you have all these layers, and she used scarves for that. So then she came to the fact that she met her husband and she got married, and she said, oh, great. Now I've met my Prince Charming and everything's going to be great. My life is going to be good. And then she started having one miscarriage after another. And that's where I focused in. And it was like time just stopped, and I just focused in on her and I started to listen. And she explained one particular miscarriage she had. And it's quite graphic, so I don't want to go too far because I don't want to upset people. So, but I wasn't as far along. She was about 4 months in, and I wasn't as far along with mine, but I had a similar, a slight similar experience to hers. And, I remember thinking to myself, when she said what she had to do with that particular miscarriage, it was like a freight train came out of nowhere, blindsided me, and hit that wall and broke it. And I went, oh, because the one miscarriage, I remember sobbing, crying on the bed. There's no other way to do. I'm just going to go right into it. We women, as we know what our periods are like, and women who have had miscarriages, I mean, you get a lot of clotting issues, and you go to the bathroom and there they are in the toilet. And I remember thinking to myself, I just flushed my baby down the toilet, and I was just sobbing hysterically. Yeah. And I kept saying, it doesn't matter. It's just, this is how my, it's just this was in the plan or whatever. And you just kind of push it down because you don't want to deal with it. And when she had said that, it just broke that wall, and it rattled me. And I became like, it really just opened up to that raw wound. So I'm sorry for going a little graphic to, the viewers, but
that's life. I mean, that's realities of life. And it's
sometimes there's no other way to just, to say it as it is. And that's when I went home. That was the first day of the class. And I went home and I realized I'm not okay. I'm really not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been okay in a long time. And I finally admitted that to myself. And by her explaining what she went through, I could relate to it. So it helped that wall just open up. It was like it was saying to my inner child, my subconscious, that it's okay. It's okay to let this go, to open this, to take a look at this. It's safe. And when I came in the next day and I had told her that we had to do an exercise that one day, and I remember, I forget what I had written down, but I wouldn't cry. I was going to be strong. I wouldn't cry. But the next day, when I was explaining something, I did start to cry.
Mm-hmm.
And then that second night, it was just a flood of tears, and it was healing. It was healing. But going back to the point where, whatever anyone has gone through, you can help another person without even realizing, just a kind word or saying, even just to say, I see you and I hear you. And I felt this before. And you know what? There is light at the end of the tunnel, and it will be okay. So, and that is very healing to people. And I can't tell you how many times I've just sat in the salon and just discussed things with people, just talking. And a lot of people said to me, thank you. You really helped me. And not even just doing it on purpose, just chatting with clients.
Just being who you are and energetically and in your soul. And it's interesting because, many people say, and I have to agree with that I don't think we actually heal someone, but we facilitate the inner healing of
Yeah.
a person, of self-healing. But sometimes it is because we actually been through that so much, we understand it with every fiber of our being, that just intuitively, unconsciously, we bring a form of healing just because we understand, and just understanding things is a form of incredible form of healing, because a lot of people just sometimes just need to talk and
Yeah.
express, and don't necessarily need a solution thing. They just want to be heard so they can actually hear themselves being heard, So I think that the way you were working unconsciously, you were bringing that presence and mindfulness and opening for people to actually express themselves. So that's as powerful as an actual modality of
Yeah.
conscious healing, I think, or I feel.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So, but yeah, I mean, healing is a journey. It's a never-ending journey. Um, it it does get better. You'll heal one thing, something else will come up,
Yep.
and after that, something else will come up. And don't be surprised if you backtrack around to that original thing that was an issue. That's why journaling is so great, because I was started to journal because I wanted to see what the commonalities were between each thing of how I felt. And it all came down for me with self-worth, because I was always made to feel that I was worthless, that what the different things that happened. And I think that's a common issue with a lot of people, because of the way our society is set up, our religions are set up, our home life. It's knowing what we know now. Any of us who follow, Elena Danan, Alex Collier, Dr. Sala, Danny Henderson, what they've discussed about our history
Mm-hmm.
is, and what has been done to us for millennia. We were made to feel like we're nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so far from the truth. I mean, we really are a very special race.
Mm-hmm.
And our healing is very important if we're going to move into the future. So when
As
we heal,
individuals, but as a society,
as a
as a
collective,
race, yeah,
yes.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as we heal our ancestral lines, seven, generations behind us and in front of us. But what we do as an individual also affects the collective. I mean, we can go in and do a meditation and send love and light to the earth and to the world and to the people, and it makes a difference. Look at the human resonance. I mean, if there's been groups of people that have done a group meditation from all over the world just in a Zoom, and you look at the human resonance at that time, it spikes.
Incredible.
No, it
It's
really,
scientific.
yes,
Yeah, yeah,
don't ever say, well, I'm only one person. You're a very powerful person.
yeah,
So, and it does make a difference. It really does. Not only for
absolutely.
yourself, but for everyone.
Hmm.
Everyone. Even, not only energetically, spiritually, but like we were just discussing, just, going through something and then having a kind word for somebody who's going through the same thing.
Yeah. As you're talking about healing and transmuting certain energies that we have in our body, which often are, the dis-ease in our bodies come from emotions that have been trapped there and perhaps not processed or transmuted. I want to gently dovetail into a topic that has to do with the galactics. But to go there, I would like to address what we were talking about, you and me alone, before we started recording, is this whole question of how the Ahil, which is an extraterrestrial race in the Pleiades, which you seem to have a connection with, and I do as well.
Yeah.
And they have a particular way of, dealing with their emotions. And I think that's very inspiring for all of us here on Terra as humans. And I don't know if you'd like to address a little bit of that and how yeah, how you use that in your life.
Um, I I realized last year that I was a Lyran Starseed. Quite shocked because I, grew up Roman Catholic, and I just figured, God sent me here for a reason, blah blah blah. But as I started to go further away from religion and started to become more aware of galactics, things started to open up for me.
Mhm.
So this past March, I had a dream. And in the dream, I was taking notes. And I was feverishly taking notes. And I looked up at this man and I said, why are you taking notes? And when I looked at him, he was Ahil, and very handsome man, hair down to here, blonde, crystalline blue eyes, very light, rimmed with dark blue flecks. And we just stared at each other. And that's when the wave came over me of my husband's energy. And I knew it was my husband. And I
Your
looked at him,
husband here in your present
my
life.
husband, who I'm married to here. And I said to him, you don't have to stay if you don't want to. Come pick me up when this is over. Because I could just tell he was bored out of his skull. But whatever this class was, I was very interested in. But for him, it was like he was there for me.
Okay.
And it's funny because he does that here as well. Like whatever I want to do, like he went with me to Jizik last year, and I expected to go by myself. I'm like, I'll be fine by myself, and he's like, no, I'll go with you. So so that whole day I woke up and I'm thinking to myself, what did I just say? And I was just thinking about it, and more, it just kind of sat with me and resonated. And I said, oh my God, I really saw something. Like, we came here together. And I'm saying, like, how do I tell him this without him thinking like, oh, I'm fantasizing about these extraterrestrial guys? Like, how do I do this? So I came home and I'm like, all right, I'm going to tell him I want to see what he says. So he was sitting in his office and I told him the dream, and he looks at me and he says, funny you should say that. He said, because I also had a dream last night. I was on a ship going on a rescue mission.
Wow.
And I went, oh my God, what just happened? So then the next night he had another dream. He said to me, I went back into the dream. I had another one. He said, this was a lot more vivid. He said, I was on a rescue mission, rescuing people chained in cages. Now, one thing you should know, my husband doesn't, as many times if I shared the videos with him from Elena, Alex, Dr. Sala, he just doesn't watch them. It frustrates the crap out of me. But
I
so how
understand.
did he know about people chained in cages?
Yeah.
So I sat there, I was like, oh my God, he was telling me what he was feeling. And he said, I felt fear. He said, but I knew I was highly trained. Um, so they do experience fear,
Mm-hmm.
but they're able to deal with it in a way where it doesn't overtake them because they are highly trained. And I think that's really, truly, our soldiers here as well.
Yeah.
Um, but he was in control of this particular group. And he said to his guys, do not get separated. If you get separated, and even if you see somebody you recognize, he said, shoot them. And I was like, oh my God, shapeshifters. So however they do things up there, I guess they stay in groups and, I guess
Yeah.
however he didn't go elaborate more. I don't think he saw. But yeah, that's just, you know, however they do these rescue missions.
Sorry, I'm sorry to cut you, but that will be
Yeah,
interesting in JSIC because JSIC, we're going to have Jean-Charles Moyen's wife, who's going to also talk
yeah,
about the rescue missions. And it will be
mhm,
interesting to see if there's like corroborations there
yes.
about, how him and her go through these rescue missions. And, that will be interesting to see if your husband actually, gets corroboration from, anyway, that
I'm
was just,
hoping. I
yeah,
keep praying to the angels, and I'm saying to myself, let him get, I want him to have some kind of a contact. Yeah.
yeah, hmm,
He's
yeah,
just about at the threshold. The man's mind is like, I need physical proof, and it's like, well, sometimes you just gotta, when you know, you know.
yeah.
So he had one more dream he had told me about. He had walked out of a stasis bed, and he said guys were around him. He said, give me a status update. And he walked by I guess, a porthole, and he saw his reflection. And he described to me exactly what I saw.
Hmm.
So his hair was shorter, he said, than how I see him. And he said he looked at his reflection and he said, good, my hair is still within, regulations. So I'm curious to know if they have a regulation in the Federation of how the length of their hair. So
Most
I don't know if that
probably.
was something he incorporated, because we do incorporate things in our life into our dreams, even if they're recall.
Hmm.
So I'm curious about that. But
Wow.
now getting into what we were talking about, the how they process their emotions. I've been doing Tony Rodriguez's recall course. So I had asked questions about a dream I had back in 2011.
Hmm.
Now, this dream, I had started off with me being woken up by a man who was my husband. He was not who I'm married to here, nor did he look like my husband as hell. He was just a random man. And I think that at that point, that was done on purpose because I wasn't ready for me to be revealed,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't have understood,
Hmm.
over 12 years at this point. I only got into really deep with the galactic stuff about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had in that dream, I knew I had been woken up. I was standing somewhere and I was very disoriented, desperately trying to figure out where I had fallen asleep, how I'd fallen asleep, how long I was asleep, how I was woken up, when I was woken up. I had all these who, what, when, where, why, and nothing was coming to me. So it was just really just disorienting. So I knew I could trust this man. And I was following him. He said, come on, I'm going to take you home so you can pack a few things you're going to need. And I said, I don't want to go home. If I go home, I'm not going to want to leave. And he agreed with me. And my mission was I was needed to go out and fight on the front lines. And this is where it gets funny. And this is where we incorporate things in our lives into our dreams. And at the time, my husband was huge into the whole zombie apocalypse, that the TV show Walking Dead was on. And so he's
Hmm.
constantly talking about that. And so, as we were, walking, um, towards where I needed to go, people walking around just very confused, disoriented. They didn't know what to do. Um, and we walked by this building, and I looked over at the building, and people were just doing things there that were just harmful to the self. um, and just not paying attention. And it's so, you know, so much like what we're going through now. I mean, we see it out in the world, just people just still doing stupid things and you know, not progressing, moving forward, and just still very ego driven and just the infighting now and just all the stuff going on. And it's so, you know, reminiscent of what's going on, you
Yeah.
know. So as I was walking towards this building, there was soldiers there. And this is where I can't remember if they had a blue uniform or silvery white. I cannot remember. That keeps getting mixed up in my head, so I can't say for certain what I saw. But there was a door, and I saw one of the soldiers open up the door. As soon as I saw the door open up, I woke up. So when I went into the recall, I asked questions of where I had fallen asleep, you know, how I was falling. So I asked those questions again. And a few days later, I had a dream and I got the answers. And the dream started off with me coming to in a stasis bed. And the stasis bed, it was a brown material. And the bed had the mattress was kind of rolls in it. And the bed was up against a huge picture window, and I could see out the window. There were trees. It was a similar environment to ours here on Teta. And as I woke up, I felt my personality in this avatar as Susie starting to fade off. And I started to cry because it was like loss of an old friend.
Mm.
And I got very upset and I said, what body am I in? And I lifted up my arm to see, and I could see pretty much from here down. It was very fair and slender. And as I was looking at my arm, it hit me of everything I had gone through here. And I dropped my arm and I just started to sob because what was very traumatic. It's not normal. This isn't normal. This is not how the way they live. Um, it was just it's really traumatic. So you know, give yourself some credit, you know, when you're going through stuff here. But my husband and Ahil, you know, body was there, and he picked me up out of the space bed, and he held me. He didn't say a word to me. He just held me, and he walked over a chair. The chair had arms, and he sat in the chair and just held me and didn't say a word and let me process and cry. And that's what they do different than what we're allowed to do. We were never allowed to process. You know, it's always be strong, put it behind you, don't cry, big girls don't cry. Oh, you're a man who doesn't cry, that makes you a sissy. They don't want us to process because it keeps us, you know, in a state of unbalance. And when we're unbalanced, you know, we can't move forward in our ascension process, in our healing journey. So that's what they do different. And, you know, what we're saying before and what, you know, Elena said in her last webinar was about, you know, how forehand goes in and he'll just, you know, get whatever it is, you know, if he's angry, he just gets it out and it's done. And it's funny, my husband here, you know, he does that.
Yeah.
So when I heard her say that, I just sat back and laughed. I'm like, oh my God, that's what, you know,
Another corroboration. Yeah.
Yes. And I told him that. I said, you know, there's no doubt in my mind, you know.
Yeah.
I personally, I know I'm Lyran. I'm going to assume that I'm Ahil.
Mm-hmm.
So probably from a colony there. I'm sure he also came with me. I don't have his chart done, so I don't know for some. I don't believe we're at Ahil. So I believe we're from a colony in Lyra.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
So yeah, that's just what I believe at this point from you know the information and the knowledge that I have, you know, right now. So I don't, you know, believe that we're, you know, I know I'm not from the Pleiades. I can't speak to him, But I'm going to assume that we both came.
Hmm. And I mean, there's been so many colonies from the Ahil coming from the Lyran system that I mean they're all over Nataru, the galaxy. So I mean, it's just it could be in many many different
Yeah,
places.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I don't know where we met. I don't know any of that. I only know bits and pieces that that I've seen,
yeah.
and that recall was very emotional for me.
Hmm.
Because I was like, oh my God, I'm an envoy. I didn't know I was an envoy. But now that I think back to all these little connecting the dots from the time I was a child, and I'm going,
Of course.
yeah. Because now I'm starting to go, oh yeah, like, like something silly, but it means something to me. Like my dolls when I was little always had to be bald with blue eyes or blonde hair with blue eyes. And my husband is bald with blue eyes. And as an Ahil, he's blonde with blue eyes. So,
Incredible.
that means that it's because when we're young, we still have some of the memory.
The
But
remembrance.
I always was disappointed that I didn't have blonde hair and blue eyes. And I always thought it was maybe because my grandfather was blonde hair. He had blonde hair and blue eyes when he was young. So, and I loved my grandfather.
Hmm.
Um, so, I just thought maybe it was that. But now, like all these little things, when I was 8, I knew what my mission was. I knew I was put here to teach people a new way to live. Um, and I remember sitting, I was looking out my window one day praying, asking God, I said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be one of the ones who survived. At that time, everything was about nuclear war and war
Hmm.
with Russia. So that's what they were teaching us. So that's what I assumed it was about.
Hmm.
But I knew then how difficult a road it was going to be, and just what we're seeing now. What Just take a look around. I mean, just the chaos that's going on, and just the disconnect between people and the fighting between people, and this group against that group and that one against this, and just
Divide and conquer, and
yes, crap that we're seeing on the media. And
hmm, yeah.
so yeah, I remember I was praying. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this.
But you're doing it
I'm doing it.
unconsciously.
They didn't
Consciously, you're
listen.
doing it. You're bringing that beautiful light.
So
You're
yeah,
doing it. That you want it or not, you're doing it.
yeah,
Before we actually go into closing this interview, I wanted to talk with you about another element you mentioned while before we started recording, and I thought it was really interesting because I really resonated with it as a Lyran soul myself. Was the question of you mentioned that Lyran souls have this tendency not to want to leave home because
yeah.
there is this thing going on, like our memory, because we're obviously chased from our worlds into by the Draco reptilian, and and that's something you've noticed about yourself, and I've definitely noticed about myself and many other people who I know are kind of because a lot of us are as humanoids come from the Lyran, constellation, whatever place. And so tell us a little bit more about that, because I think a lot of people are going to resonate about that element there.
I had I had gone through a period of really bad anxiety, and I would say that was about 6, 7 years ago.
Mhm.
And I was in at a crossroads of changing my career, and I was going to go into computers and leave the whole beauty industry. And when I was actually faced with that and seeing what my husband goes through in the corporate environment, I just couldn't do it. And that's when something really clicked inside me that I couldn't leave my home for extended periods of time. Going to work was fine, but I wouldn't go on vacations because I had this terrible fear that I couldn't come back, and I could never figure out why. So I worked through, anxieties, and, things got better. And then, yeah, I was able to go out on vacations, but I don't like to leave my home. I hate leaving my home. I hate leaving my cats. And I just thought it was just from being shifted around a lot as a child, never really knowing why. So I had read an article about, are you a starseed? So I read this article about the difference, Lyran, Palladian, Syrian, and I read about the Lyran. And they were going through all these things. One of these things was not wanting to leave, having a fear of not being able to return home.
Mhm.
And oh my God. So then they gave the symbols for the different star seeds. And the symbol that they showed, I sat back in my chair and oh my God. And I started to cry because I guess it was last year sometime. And I'll have like snippets of dreams that'll go just short. And I was shown a golden disc with a smaller, darker golden, almost orangish disc inside of it.
Okay.
And when they said the symbol for the Lyran starseed, when I looked at that, I went, that's what I saw. So I knew that was my confirmation that I'm a Lyran starseed.
Wow.
So, but knowing that where that fear comes from, it makes it a lot easier knowing, okay, this is, this is why. And I've had dreams, recurring dreams for the years. I haven't had one in a while, but of fires in my home, having to flee my home from the fire. And one of the last ones was my husband and I were in the car and we were leaving our town. And I was looking at all the houses. We were going down one of the roads, and I said, "It's such a shame all these houses are going to burn up." So, and I never understood why did I have all those fire dreams. I'm terrified of fire. There was how many years ago it is now. The salon, one of the salons that I worked at, there was a fire that started in the building next to it, and it came in and burned our building down. So we kind of lost our workplace. But fortunately, as a group, as a salon, we went to work at another salon around the corner, so that was okay. But it was a nice little town that I worked in, and like the building next to us, like you'd sit, like I'd sit in the chairs up front waiting for a client. And you see people walking in around, walking their dogs, and that fire really affected me, and I never knew why. So for a while there, I got my candles, even though it had nothing to do with a candle. It started in a furnace. It was one of the furnace in the building. It was a big building that furnace,
Yeah.
by all the apartments and the so so yeah, fire is like our a big thing. So it leads me to wonder, was one of my incarnations, did I flee,
And
that
since,
planet?
time is, again, time is not linear,
Yeah,
time is parallel. So that means that
happening now.
it's
Yeah,
happening right now. I mean, you
yeah,
are, losing your world in Lyra right now, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
so it's something that has a really strong imprint on us. And again, if we don't do the healing through the body and through the consciousness and getting back these memories back, this ends up affecting us, and again, we come back to your beautiful modality in practice, is that it brings this opportunity through the body to, bring to consciousness, or even not to consciousness, but just perhaps just physically to just bring some sort of memory and healing. And that's very powerful, and we all need to do it, I guess, in some ways. But
yeah, because it really gets stuck in the body. Like when I went and I did the second certification, my teacher was training me privately because I needed the 2 certifications in order to go into the teacher training, to get the teacher training certification so I could teach. And she was working on points, and she was hitting points right up in here, up by my shoulder blades. And I was laying there and I was fascinated. And I said, she says, what's happening? Now, my mind was calm, my soul was calm. I trust her completely. I was really in a good place, headspace, spiritual. And I said, my body wants to pull away from you, but you're not hurting me. And I said, I'm fascinated by this. And she says, tell me more about this. What does it feel like? I said, it feels like there's a rod in my back. She says, okay, tell me more. And I said, I don't know. She said, well, what's its temperature? And I said, it's cold. And I said, I know this is my rigidity. I have a tendency to be a very rigid person because of the way that, I was raised. It was like, no matter what I did, whether I did it exactly the way I was told, it was still wrong. So I was always very, rigid. And I said to her, it's funny that it's cold because I'll get in bed at night and I'm warm, but my back is freezing and I have to put a heating pad on it. She goes, oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So she says, ask your body, ask yourself. And I said, it's not giving me anything just yet. So I was laying there. She was just pressing more points. And I said, what came to me was backstabbing. All the different times in my life when I had been betrayed by people I trusted, friends or supposed friends, and being stabbed in the back.
Yeah.
So the body doesn't know that it's okay. That's why a lot of people have that issue, like I have neck and shoulder issues, not from also doing the work because I'm constantly like this all the time, but this is what I'm saying. It gets trapped in the body, in our root and sacral. That's where a lot of trauma gets stored. Whether it's your emotional trauma, sexual trauma. Fortunately, I never had any of that, but all that gets stuck in those areas. So if you have lower back issues, really take a look at issues that may have happened in the past. So this is what I mean by things get stuck in the body, and something like this modality of acupressure really helps to balance that and bring that out to relax the body, let the body know it's okay, you're safe now. You're safe.
Mm-hmm.
And
the body is like a map. It's incredible how you can actually read it, and when you understand the little codes there, you're able to undecipher that map and help it. So it's beautiful.
Yes. And think of now where my heart also lies, and what I really want to go into is think of people who've been in SSP, people who've been abducted. Now their memories are wiped, but their body still remembers.
Yeah. And
so this can help them as they're going through their, remembering, to release the fact that, your body is safe now. That's in the past. So this can work hand in hand, with that.
Before we end this interview, I just wanted for you to just tell us a little bit more about where you're heading regarding your practice. What is it you want to do with all this training, and what type of perhaps of clientele you want to address, and if you have any perhaps some links you'd like to share with us. If so, we can put them under the description of this video so people can eventually contact you. And if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Right now, I'm tomorrow I have another teacher training certification. I have one more certification coming up. In the fall, I work at a yoga studio 1 day a week, just working front desk. So she has an extra room there that she offered to me. They actually had acupuncturists there. And when I was interviewing with her for the front desk position, she had said, oh, we had an acupuncturist here, but, eventually we'd like to fill it again. And I walked in, I looked at that room and I thought to myself, this is going to be my room. And this is before I even went into any of the certifications. I just knew.
Yeah.
So I spoke to her a couple of weeks ago and I said, were you serious about that? And she said, yes. So I will be working. I will be working there. And just, I'm going to be at the JISC. I will, anybody who wants me to do, the SAVOR protocol, which is, I can do that seated. I'd be happy to, work on some people.
For those who don't know what JISC is, it's just the acronym of the Galactic, in Spiritual Informers Connection, that will be taking place in Orlando, October 2020 to 22nd, who is organized by our beautiful Danny Henderson and many speakers regarding the disclosure, and spiritual elements and ET elements and galactic elements will be spoken about in this really, really important gathering, which is not only about speakers, but also people gathering together to meet each other, find their soul family, and like yourself, bring perhaps to others their beautiful energy and help in that way bring some healing or some conscious or unconscious, but you just by who you are, bringing your beautiful soul to this gathering, which I really look forward to see you and meet you in person.
Yeah, same here.
So before we go, would you like to tell us just the last few words of things you would like to just leave the viewers with regarding your own wisdom?
Just just the healing is just so important. Where we're headed as a species, as a planet, as a collective, as a whole, is so far beyond what we can imagine, what we've been told. We are a very, very special race. And this is why they've done what they've done to us, for those of us who know, backstories from, Elaine and Alex. Our healing, if we want to meet the galactics on their level, we need to do that inner work. Yeah. Because our inner work now frees up future generations, and it also, heals our past generations. So by doing that, we it will raise our consciousness, raise our vibration, so we can meet them. Because I can tell you, I've been around them, and their energy is wonderful. But if you don't know how to, if you've never experienced it, it brings up things that are hidden in you that still need to work on, and it can be uncomfortable. So, and it's not like they're doing anything to you, it's just their presence. Mm-hmm. So,
it's like a mirror.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Into our Star Trek future, this is what we have to do, and just for ourselves, I mean, it's about self-love. We've been taught not to love ourselves, and that's just so wrong. Yeah. It's just, we're just, each one of you're an amazing person, and regardless of what you've been told or by who, or, whatever, you're worth it. Yeah. You're worthy of your own love. You're worthy of love in general, because at our root, we are love. Because source is love. Source is love like you can't even begin to imagine. I've experienced it. It's just
it binds everything.
Yes, it's a feeling that I can't even put into words. It's just, picture your happiest moment in time snap by into the now, because that's what it felt like when I had experienced. It was another dream I had, mm-hmm. And my chest was so full I couldn't breathe, and I woke up and I carried that with me through the day. And that's what they mean by ecstasy. We think in our terms, ecstasy is either drug induced or sexual. I mean, and it's so far beyond that. It's love in its purest form, and just remember that you are a fractal of it. Mm-hmm. So there is no judgment. There is none of that. That is somebody else judging us from 400,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's gone now.
We're ready to transmute that and let that go, for sure. Yeah. On an individual level and on a Terran level. Yeah. My dear Susie, I thank you so very much for everything you brought to us, your beautiful experiences, your incredible modality of work, which I'm sure is going to help so many people in the present and future. Thank you for being all that you are and what you do, your beautiful, beautiful soul. I forgot to mention, but Susie has a link on Facebook, I think a Facebook page that we'll put under the description of this video. But as you said, it is something you're building on right now. It's not completely ready or entirely done yet, but you're slowly constructing this. But I'll leave the link under this the description of the video. This way, at least people can come back to go to your page and see where whenever they go there, they'll see where you're at and where your beautiful practice is taking flight. And yeah, I think it's going to help a lot of people. So
Well, I'm
again,
hoping that's my deepest desires is to help people.
I'm sure it's gonna work out wonderfully. So looking forward to see you at JSIC. And again, thank you so much for everything. And it's been a real pleasure to have you in the channel.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take great care of yourself.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks. Hello, beautiful soul. You have been on a spiritual journey for some time, or perhaps you're just starting your inner journey. And you probably have questions that remain unanswered right now, although all your answers lie within yourself, as always. But sometimes we need someone to just give us a little nudge. And personally, as an intuitive and a transmitter and a creator, I have created my own type of approach where I offer the people the opportunity to ask a few questions, a maximum of 5 questions, where I will provide from my inner guidance, which is the fractal of source that I am and that you are as well as my high vibration guidance. Will provide a vocal transmission. And also we will be creating an artwork just for you, unique and original, based on your questions, and the motifs and the colors that will be chosen for the artwork will have in some ways some information about the answers to your question. And I will also use a piece of music that, either through the frequency of its melody, of its words, will also give you some clues as to what the answers to your questions might be. And I only serve as a nudge, as a pointer, in order for you to, after that, resonate or not with this information, and then you can pursue your own spiritual and inner journey, just having been just helped a little bit on the path. So if you're interested in a creative intuitive transmission session, which I call CIT, I invite you to follow the link that's below in the description of this video, and on my website, abigailrichard.com/CIT. And don't hesitate to ask for more information or just book a session. Have a lovely day. Bye.